Oh. Hi everyone, this is Clare Norman, professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation, and I'm going to do a demo today of what coaching sounds and feels like, and I am happy to have Alex with me here today to do 30 minutes of coaching. While you're watching this coaching or listening to this coaching, I'd like you to be thinking about what are you noticing, what is surprising you, and what are you wondering? And of course, if you have things you want to pick up on after you've watched the demo, you can always get in touch with me and I'll provide the details at the end of this recording. So Alex, thank you for agreeing to being recorded today. What would you like to bring to coaching?
Claire, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to join. I've reflected a bit over the topic that I'd like to bring into the conversation, and the context is a professional context in my work environment.
Mm-hmm.
So in short, over the past few weeks, I've received several requests coming from various stakeholders to get involved in some significant pieces of work, bigger projects, programs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all stuff that I don't feel close or passionate about, and it is stuff that I'd rather say no to instead of saying yes to because of multiple reasons. But I can't help noticing that in the past couple of weeks, a couple of more opportunities like these have bundled up and have been presented to me, asking me if I want to pick up or get involved in some specific pieces of work.
Mm-hmm.
And my reflection was, I can take this as a good opportunity for myself to think about a couple of things. One of them is to think about how to effectively decline some of these requests.
Yep.
And then how to remove any sense of guilt around having done that with some of the meaningful stakeholders. And then the other point for me is about still feeling comfortable to be in a mutual type of exchange and feel comfortable about asking for stuff, even though I've declined some stuff as well.
Okay.
Because in the past, it was a subject which was more meaningful, and I've worked with myself as part of my development to feel comfortable about saying no, positioning where my contribution is, and all of that. But I can't help noticing that a couple of requests have bundled up just within the past few weeks. So I think it's a good opportunity for me to revisit.
Great. So in the 30 minutes that we have together, where would you like to get to with that?
So specifically, if by the end of the 30 minutes, I'll have a good think about and maybe a practice around how to effectively decline
some
invitations to get involved in projects that I don't feel close to, or I don't think I can contribute as best as other stuff or prioritize.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Then recognizing a strategy by which I can measure the sense of guilt, but also temper it down if it is there, and spend some time reflecting on the nature of the relationship once I've declined some request, but at the same time, we have a mutual exchange of favors and tasks that we help each other out with the stakeholders. So I would still feel comfortable about asking for stuff, even though I'm declining some stuff. Yeah?
Okay, yeah. So how will you know that you've got what you need around declining and removing that sense of guilt?
So in an actual conversation, not just for the purpose of the half an hour, but in an actual conversation, how would I know I would effectively decline would be to have a good, meaningful dialogue around the request, where I comfortably and confidently and calmly, let's say, here's a mouthful of C's, explain my position around it, where the sense of my contribution is prioritization with everything else that we're doing, but also extending, let's say, a good invitation to think together with the other person of how we might be able to address their need, but not necessarily through me, but maybe identifying other people within the context of work that might potentially contribute to that. And it might be other persons, yeah.
And so how will we know by the end of our time together that you are going to be in that position of confidence and calmness?
I think if we give it a go by the end of our 30 minutes together, if we give it a go and actually practice one of those situations, a hypothetical one, I think it's going to be a good validation that I've made progress with my thinking and with my awareness on the subject.
Great, great. So my next question is about how shall we do the work together? It sounds like you want to do some practice for one of these conversations. But is there anything else that you want us to think about in terms of how we work together?
Well, saying what I've said earlier about doing some practice, I feel I'm already kind of challenging myself around it.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it's meaningful, but at the same time, don't hesitate for yourself to be challenging and propose a different viewpoint, or think together with me about what the subject is. Yeah. So you're right, I'd like to spend some time practicing, but I'd also like to spend some time thinking about where this is coming from, what this means, and what's the impact on the relationship.
Okay, yeah. And any challenge from me, you're open to that?
Yes.
Are you also open to me interrupting you if I see an opportunity to cut to the chase?
By all means, please do so, because
Okay.
I have a you'll see, I'll be thinking, talking and thinking at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm happy if you're thinking, if you're getting new thoughts, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you get a sense that you know this stuff already, then let's catch you and kind of move you to the new thinking that you're looking for.
Sure thing.
Around this. Okay. So where would you like to start?
I would start from the idea of how I can effectively decline. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the work is meaningful in the context of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's meaningful for my stakeholders, so it's important that it gets solved, but it's not very much aligned in these type of requests with what my contribution is and what my passions and focus areas are.
Yeah.
And it is important, not just in terms of prioritization, but also around managing the expectations of stakeholders, that I decline some invitations to join pieces of work in.
Mm.
And I've been doing that over the years. It was just they bundled up together more lately. Yeah? So in terms of how to effectively decline, my thinking is, and my awareness is, that it's important that I'm fully present in the conversation, and that I don't get into a passive or resistant mindset or conversation where I'm kind of defending my position and saying, no, I can't touch the piece of work, it's yours or it's someone else's, and let's find a solution to it. But I'm more positioning as a conversation where I help the other person and we think together about what they need to solve, who's the right person in the organization to help them with this request and such. Yeah? So it's a bit of a different positioning around the conversation, because I recognize over time I might have taken a bit of a defensive stance around, well, it doesn't really sit with me, it might sit with a different person and so on. And I'm protective around my priorities and focus areas.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I need a bit of a different stance in terms of how to effectively manage it, around thinking together with the other person about what they need to be solving, instead of defending my position.
And what's important about that?
I think it's set because most often with the people that I have in mind, with the stakeholders, I have a very adult to adult, straightforward, mutual relationship where we're supporting each other out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't see any point in addressing them differently when it comes to declining opportunity, offers to join in a project. So what's meaningful about it is to maintain that type of relationship, instead of becoming defensive about something or without considering their position really well and thinking together with them. I recognize that in the way that I've responded to a couple of these in the past, I might have focused a bit too much on my position and less necessarily on their position. But whether I like to go forward with this is to think from a common perspective in terms of, okay, you need to deal with this. Here's how we can think together. Let's identify, some way forward for yourself so that you take care of what you need to take care of in the context of the project, but also for myself to be comfortable about how we're moving forward. So I guess it's about taking different position as compared to the current one.
So I'm hearing it's about being assertive that you won't be taking it on, but it's also about collaborating on helping them to figure out who would be a good person to take it on, or what would be the strategy for moving forward with it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And how does that feel?
It feels good when I say it out loud, because I haven't really considered from a positioning perspective what exactly is my intent when going in those discussions. I think my underlying intent was to be protective of my areas and my position, and I've done that successfully. But I think what that has generated is also a bit of a sense of guilt of not really helping out the other person. So just by having this conversation and recognizing I would be consciously moving into a different position, I think what that does for me in terms of how I feel about it is to remove some of the sense of guilt around it.
So how, if you were to look at that guilt on a sliding scale, how much guilt on a scale of 0 to 10 did you have the old way?
6, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thinking about this new, more collaborative way, where does that reduce the guilt to?
Oh, it would reduce it to a 3.
Okay. Is that enough of a reduction?
Yeah, I think that's fine, yes. In the context of the work that I engage in, that's fine, because it creates that sense of guilt on a 3, let's say. It still creates a bit of a sense of attention around the reciprocity of and the nature of our relationship, so I'm comfortable with that.
Great. It sounds like reciprocity is becoming more important to you.
In the context of those relationships, yes.
Great. So what do you know now that you didn't know when we started?
I didn't recognize the value of taking a conscious decision of switching positions and mindset around the type of discussion I'd like to have with the stakeholder when explaining my position, but also thinking together with them about how they might solve their stuff. So this is something I didn't recognize well at the start of our discussion.
And so where do you want to go now?
Before I get into a practice thing, I would like to just briefly think about the idea of how comfortable I am in that perspective of reciprocity once I do turn something down, let's say, to still feel comfortable about asking for stuff, in a good, genuine way.
Okay. So go on, where do you want to start with that piece?
I think for me it was connected to that bit about guilt, and in my mind it was something about the person comes asking for help. I'm saying, well, I'm not the right person to help you with this. They go away with stuff, but then at the same time, I need to ask them for stuff later on, 2 days later, about their support with things. Yeah? And I felt a bit bad about it because, you know, here's them 2 days earlier asking me for help, and I didn't offer it.
Mm-hmm.
And now here they are asking for help. Here I am asking for something. Therefore, the reciprocity piece kind of becomes a bit more important in the nature of these relationships.
Yeah.
It's not in the sense that they're transactional, they're mutually satisfying relationships, but there's a bit of give and take, let's say, to them in terms of how we support, champion each other's, and also provide help when needed. Yeah. So I've received feedback, I remember some time ago, from one of the stakeholders in the organization that, you know, I need to increase opportunities for reciprocity from others because I do offer selflessly sometimes, yeah, and I don't necessarily ask for something in exchange because I want to help other people out. It's fine, yeah, and especially where there's not big commitments and time requests, I do help out. But the feedback that I got from that person was very useful and meaningful for me to understand that I need to allow space for reciprocity and for the other person to actively contribute and help as well. So taking on that learning into the situation we're exploring today, I think as I reframe my mindset around what's my positioning around the discussion, and we think together about how they might address the challenge that they need addressing, I think I will have contributed, not just refused, let's say, to join the project, but I will have contributed to them thinking about how they take it forward. So therefore, there, in my view, there shouldn't be any reason why I shouldn't comfortably be showing up in a couple of days later to ask for something as support, for example, yeah, because the support was there when we had the conversation as well. It wasn't just a decline of offering.
And yet I think if I heard you correctly, you said that you don't tend to ask others for help.
No, I do tend, but I mean, there's something about the nature of reciprocity. Yeah? It's not because I don't ask for help, because I do, and I involve others very much, but it was when others, for example, might ask for some favor or some help with something, or a resource, or a connection with someone else. I don't necessarily ask for something back. I just help them out, and it's fine. Yeah. But the feedback I got some time ago was, well, if you keep doing that, it's a very unbalanced type of relationship as well. And we feel, as a stakeholder, the person said, I feel I want to contribute to yourself as well. So you need to ask me for stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the other person kind of telling me I need to allow them for the reciprocity piece. Yeah.
Right. So it's giving you permission to ask.
Sort of, I guess. It's not like I felt I needed explicit permission, because in my mind I was asking whenever I needed to.
Right.
But the person said, "Well, you need to do it more intentionally as well, yeah, because that's how the relation develops as well." Which I found it to be a very interesting, meaningful comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So to do it more intentionally, what might that look like?
So, specific to this situation, where when I'm getting into a context where a person asks me, a stakeholder asks me for contributing to a bigger project where I don't feel connected to, and I need to decline that. There's something about recognizing those moments, remembering our discussion and the intentional change of position. And really thinking together with the other person, understanding them, listening well to them about what is it they need, and thinking together with them what might a possible solve be. Because even though that requires a bit of time and attention as well, it for sure requires much less time than me getting involved in the actual work.
Yeah.
And then it still maintains the relationship in a good, favorable, meaningful way together. Yeah.
So, Alex, we are 10 minutes from the end of our session. What have you learnt so far?
I've learned that historically speaking, I might have taken a position of observer to the stuff that's kind of happening and were inflicting on me externally to say, you know, why don't you join this or that or whatever. It felt a bit out of control. But the way that I respond to these type of situations is very much under my control. And there's something about change of mindsets in the moment to recognize what my position is in the conversation. Yeah. So that's a meaningful thing that I've learned.
Great. And what is that new mindset for you?
It is a collaborative mindset where I develop good mutually satisfying and helpful relationships with my stakeholders. Yeah.
So in this good chunky piece of time that we have left, how would you like to use that?
I would say let's give it a go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how shall we do that?
I don't know. I'm very much open to no, it's not even role playing; it's more real playing, isn't it? Yes. So if you would kindly accept to be one of my stakeholders, that's me to get involved in a project, and we give it a go in terms of how the dialogue might look and feel like. For me, it would be useful, I think.
Okay. So I probably can't respond to anything you say because I am not your stakeholders. But I can certainly be your sounding board. You know, you can practice on me, your opening gambit or whatever, and see how it comes out of your mouth, so that when you do it for real, it's not the first time that you do it. So I'm going to suggest that you just shift positions a bit, and I will do the same, so that you get into a place where you feel confident to have this conversation. And so let's say that I've just come up to you and said, Alex, I have this big piece of work that I'd really like to get you involved with. Here's the outline of what it involves. Can you help me? So I'd like you to respond to me as though you are actually responding in the moment.
Okay. Claire, thank you for coming up to me with this interesting piece of work. What I'm happy to do is to help you think about how you might take it forward if that's useful. And typically I'd expect the other person saying, yes, please think together with me, because that is useful. So I understand what the scope of the project is, and I understand why you might have considered me for the work, and I appreciate the feedback and, you know, considering me a good person to help out. For this specific piece of work, though, I'm wondering if within the context of our organization, it might be useful to also involve other people to contribute to this. To be clear, I think this might sit better in a different part of the organization, and you'd get the most contribution from there. And what I'd like to do in the time we have together is to think together with you in terms of how we might engage those people to be well contributing. So in terms of my contribution, I would like to support your thinking and finding out, you know, how you can engage the right people in your project. But at the same time, I won't be taking full role in terms of, you know, contributing to this project on a, let's say, part-time basis for a period of X time, as per the outline of your project. Yeah.
So as you say that out loud, how does it sound to you?
I mean, it sounds all right. I still felt that towards the end, I felt I needed to make it a bit tangible, because in the context of the work, there's something about, you know, managing the expectations of stakeholders, not just kind of moving around the topic. Yeah. So in terms of that, I still felt I needed to be clear about. Just to be clear, I'm not saying I'm picking up the work in a way that it's you know, as designed in the outline, but I am saying I would like to think together with you and help you out. Yeah. So I thought before going into the practice, I thought maybe it's going to be a bit less of that around let me be clear about it, but I think it's still meaningful in the context of the organization. Yeah.
So, having reflected on it, do you want to try it again?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm shifting positions again. Here we go. Go on.
So, so Alex, I've got this great piece of work that I think you'll be a perfect fit for. I'd like to talk about how to get you involved in this project.
Claire, thanks for bringing this to me. I do recognize that it's a really good piece of work, and I know where it fits within our organization. I think it's going to be a meaningful contribution. I'm also happy that you brought it forward to have a conversation with me, because that's a good validation of the trust we have together, but also of the skill set that I'm bringing into into the mix. So what I'd be happy to do is to think together with you in terms of how you might be able to best address this. As you know, in the context of work, we also have all of these other projects that we're working on, X, Y, Z. And at the moment, I do have limited capability to get fully involved in a project like this. But I would like to support you in figuring out who internally might be best able to contribute to this. I know what the work is about. I'm trustful in the people we have in the team and their capabilities as well. And I would say we can find a good mix to be able to address the need, but also to deliver a really good outcome by the end of the year. You know? So to be clear and straightforward about it, personally, I wouldn't have full capacity to get engaged in a project like this at the moment. But what I would like to do as a contribution is to think together with you in terms of how you might best involve some internal colleagues to be supporting the outcome. Yeah.
So how does that feel?
It felt really good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So it felt, in terms of still establishing the clear expectations, it was in what I've experienced still clear. Yeah. But at the same time, it positioned some validation in terms of I understand why the work is meaningful, how this contributes, and here's what I'd like to help with. Yeah. So would you have any feedback yourself in terms of what you noticed?
I noticed something the first time, which I didn't notice the second time. And you talked about how we might engage other people. And I wondered, whether you wanted to use the we or the you. In other words, how much responsibility did you want to take for engaging other people alongside them?
Yeah, and I didn't use it the second time I had the...
Correct, you did not. I was looking out for it.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's fine. I think that talks to me about progress in terms of where responsibility sits for the deliverable itself, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's still their responsibility, but at the same time, I'm thinking together with them. So I'm not taking the responsibility away from them in any way. Yeah?
Right. Great. So, Alex, we have 2 minutes left. What would be useful in that 2 minutes?
I think a good wrap-up would be as useful, yes. So we've touched on the learning points earlier.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a moment to reflect on how I feel and how that feels for me, having gone through the practice as well. So it feels good. I feel confident to go in that discussion. I'm glad we've had 2 rounds of practicing it. I've stood up, because I'm sitting down when we have the conversation, but I stood up and taken a different position during the practice so that I can actively, engage in my body a new position. Yeah. And that was helpful. Yeah.
Great.
So that has given me good insight about the physical change that I might need to do when showing up in a conversation like this. Yeah.
Great. So you wanted to be able to effectively decline requests and remove the sense of guilt, and then also feel more comfortable asking in terms of reciprocity. So where are you with those things?
Yeah, I feel much more comfortable in terms of asking in a couple of days. And if I were to think about, we've had that discussion and we meet in a couple of days from now and I need to ask for something, I wouldn't feel in any way, let's say, hesitant to ask for a contribution. Maybe not to a big piece of work or something like that, but for a resource, for a connection, for an introduction, for some support, I would feel very comfortable. Yeah?
Great. So what have you learned about yourself?
There's much more in my control around these types of situations than just being an observer of the inflicting forces of the stakeholders around me. Yeah? There's much more under my control in terms of how I respond to these. Yeah?
Nice. So are we done?
I think we are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Alex.
Thank you as well, Claire.
Let me wrap up the recording. And so for those people who are listening to this, if you do have questions or comments or want to get in touch about what you just saw, then please do come to clarenormancoachingassociates.com or write to me at clare@clarenormancoachingassociates.com for a conversation about coaching. And with that,